Hey, Sasha.
So
Sorry, I'm so late.
I like this idea of having one database user ID per microservice. I mean, that's the sort of thing that makes people doing auditing stuff happy. So
Yeah, and then I even thought about it at the next level where you could really get granular and let's say like in our reporting service we access 3 tables. Um, on the database side we could create a view, the DBAs could create a view, and then we'd have access to the view. So we'd actually only be querying up against the view. I know some DBAs don't like to deal with a lot of views. Uh, and there's some that do, because then they get to control the queries and the indexing and all that stuff at that level. But then the idea expanding it out from like a user ID per service is also limiting the access to which tables that user ID would have access to. Instead of having access to the full schema, you'd have access to just your 4 tables that you're going to be interacting with at that level. So that was the next kind of logical step, I thought, but I wasn't sure if it was overkill going this fine-grained type of permissions on the back end. Any thoughts?
yeah, when I've seen people try to do things um, at that level of granularity, it ends up being more of a maintenance difficulty. And since each of these things is sort of a demo and it's not like we're expecting there to be a lot of feature drift, we might be able to live with that sort of maintenance. But you know, I think from demoing the product perspective, having the user ID per microservice and seeing how much we can make that audit trailable to people would be more useful from the Ortelius perspective.
Okay, that's what I thought. It's one of those things that you could go down this rabbit trail and then create more of a mess. And that's why I wasn't sure the way they'll approach it. Any other ideas on that? Okay, so initially we'll set up a read-only, and what we'll recognize. I think right now we'll do it at basically, the monolith. The monolith piece of Ortelius obviously has full access because it does all the different transactions, but the microservices, like for these reports, would be a read only, and we just share that same same database user ID across all the reporting services. So we're not going to go super granular with one per database user ID per service, but for I would say per role, like a read-only role, may be the way to go.
These microservices are just demo microservices, or are they going to be part of the product?
They'll be part of the product.
Okay.
So basically, everything that we're doing in terms of the issues we've opened for the reports and whatnot, we're writing everything as a microservice at this point.
Yep.
And then we have to, sometime in 2021, this group's going to have to think about how to decompose the rest of it, because it has to get done sooner or later. That will be a big. That will be a big, good-sized project for some of us. It's going to be a learning experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, there's 100, I think I counted 130 tables that are used to run Ortelius. So you could think of 130 microservices at the minimum.
So that's where all the versioning's done and all those tables.
Yeah. So that was on the architecture. So that's moving along. We'll get the database connection out there as part of that. things like the cloud build pieces are coming into play. I believe like Aisha and I want to say Sagar are working on Helm charts for these services. They're going to work on it over the weekend coming up. So that's moving along. We're doing a build upon approach. So we're going to take our dummy flask and we're going to build upon it. So everybody that's been interested wants to learn from the very check in and start coding all the way through the whole process all the way to deployment and monitoring. So we're going to take everybody through that process so everybody learns a little bit of the whole DevOps world out here. Onto the marketplace. I did reach out. I'm still trying to reach out to open source communities that are creating microservices. The parts I'm thinking of right now that we're trying to reach out to our scientific labs, DOE, DOD, here in the States, universities that may be doing some sort of research, scientific research based on Kubernetes at that level. And then also on the, what I was calling the financial side of things, there's some economic models out there that they're running through Kubernetes as well from the universities. Those types of groups we want to reach out to. So if you have any, if you're alumni of a university and get their monthly newsletter or something like that from your CS department or econ department, just take a look to see if they have any projects that we can maybe hook into as part of that process. And I should know by the end of the week whether we have a resource from Sandia National Lab to work on this for us. We'll get $20,000 worth of resources from Sandia to help work on this part of the project. This one, we kind of, before we get too far down the road, I want to figure out if we want to call it a marketplace or a catalog. So we don't have to do it today because we're running kind of late here. But think about that for next time. We just need to standardize on it so we can get all the documentation, all the positioning, the outreach, and all that stuff in place. Marketplace, for example, you have like the Google Marketplace. I don't know, remember, Christopher, what does AWS call their stuff? Is it a marketplace or catalog?
I think like for the IM images and stuff, it's a marketplace.
Okay.
And I was curious what your thoughts on the marketplace versus catalog thing were. I feel like catalog is more like the old school mainframe era sort of.
That's why I didn't want to use catalog. I was like,
and
oh,
we could choose something other.
but I hate to throw rocks in glass houses against old people, but
well, Tecton's using the term catalog for their sort of their plugins, right? But
yeah.
when you think about APIs, you really think of an API marketplace.
Yeah. So like I said, think about this, and we're so early on that marketplace catalog.
Whatever.
Or there may be another word we're not thinking about.
I mean, I think directory would be sort of along with catalog.
Yeah, like a service directory. That's just as.
Yeah.
That takes us all down the wrong road.
I mean, on the new term side, domain driven design is based on patterns. So we can think that way as well, because that's what we're really talking about is domain-driven design.
Okay, so let's talk about my biggest concern for Ortelius right now, which I think it's going to be our biggest thing to overcome, and that is adoption. Like I said, I've asked the outreach committee for each of them to kind of work through signing on to Ortelius through the Deploy Hub team environment and go through the tutorial. But what I feel like this group we need to make was one of our primary goals initially is to make sure that the tool is easy to use. And where are the problems? So this is something that Steve and I have struggled with because we're too close to it. We can't see what we already know. It's hard to forget how the tool works, so you already know the answers. And we need to find out from this community what we need to address from a usability standpoint, and if we need to start thinking about making those changes a priority. So we really need your input on this. If we can get some feedback from you over the next 2 weeks, and how we can make it an easier tool to use. The thing is, we've talked to people who are pretty sharp and they catch on really quickly, and then other people, they struggle with it. We're not sure why, but we do need to address it. And any conversation in this group would be great. And doing things like Christopher's thinking about in terms of onboarding, doing something more automated to go out and look at a cluster and try to figure out what the applications are and bring that information back into Ortelius, so that when people first start using it, there's sort of an automatic integration to their existing cluster.
And that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe the best way to get a person's data that they're familiar with is to not worry about the UI and just say, here, run this command against your cluster and we'll bring it all in and build the relationships from what we can derive from there. That way they can actually start visualizing what they have as a starting point, building out these relationships, even though they may not be 100% accurate, based on a namespace or something like that, we can make the association, that type of thing. So that was one part I was thinking of, is we get some data loaded in really quickly, that people can start looking at.
I agree with all that.
Yes. Now go write it.
So Roy looks like he put a note in the chat here. He looks like he's having some background noise, so didn't want to. Roy, you want to go ahead and take a chance? The background noise might be okay.
Sure. So back about the user accounts and stuff, figuring out how to contain groups for groups of microservices, application stacks of microservices grouped together, or user communities, or those kinds of things. A service account in the database for scoping a group of microservices for a specific task might be useful.
Okay, cool.
Also about the documentation and how we bring people on board. Any use cases we can think of might be a good idea to stick in a tracker of some sort. Things that we could do are video tutorials, or somebody familiar with the project could do video tutorials, or suggest tutorial documents with screenshots or those kinds of things might be a good idea. But definitely, if we could track them in some kind of ticket or tracker, um, uh, that'll probably help us make sure we follow through with those things.
All right. Cool. Now, I was thinking on the we have now this is, I don't know if this is the right place to put it, but on the, let's say you're in Jenkins and you have your CI build that's creating your Docker container. We have a plugin that we can slim down, so it's maybe like 2 or 3 lines of code that we can throw in your Jenkins pipeline, and we can start recording stuff out of your pipeline and populating into Ortelius at the component version level. Information that's coming out of your CI process. Um, I don't know if that would be a good starting point for understanding what the benefit of Ortelius is, or if we should start from, like I said, the cluster side and work backwards. We'll need to marry the two together eventually, so we can start anything coming out of the CI process. We'll be creating new versions of components and new versions of applications that people can track at that level. But that was another thought I had, was on the integration side to these CI tools. If we make them very easy, a few lines of code to plug in, if people would be willing to do that as part of a trial process or getting started process.
Hmm.
I mean, I think each route works for different sets of people. You know, for the people that are spending their time doing release engineering, throwing the thing into Jenkins is a no-brainer and easy. But you know, if you're not in the group of people that's doing the release engineering, having some other route into it is probably better, so you don't have to mess with that part of it.
Okay. I guess we'll need the next step would be come up with the personas that we would want to look at for those different routes. Uh,
Yeah, and she's not on this call today, but I believe that Nitu is also working on trying to really define the personas.
okay, good. So we'll
I,
bring that up next time. Yeah,
yeah,
she
at
has
the
a
community
conflict.
meeting.
Yeah, she has a conflict for this meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a great idea. We can narrow it down, and like Roy said, that we could create a tutorial for each persona, how to get started.
Yep.
I'd like to keep it to like 3 to 4 personas instead of like 10. You know, that just saves us work, even though there would be overlap. Um, but if we can figure out 3 to 4 personas to start with and see how it goes.
So I
Okay.
guess the question is for those of you for all of us on here, how many of you have actually signed up and gone through like the first hour to see? I know some of you have. And if you have any feedback at that point.
Halfway through that today, actually.
Yeah, one of the things I know that there is, we'll run into problems with the bridge between WordPress and Ortelius or Deploy Hub on the back end with the sign up process. And that definitely has to be changed up. The bridge is just too funky. There's timeouts that happen uh, coming out of the WordPress side as part of that. But
we were trying not to do too much at this point because we did have our meeting with the CD Foundation. Went really well. They're pretty excited about the prospects of bringing Ortelius in. They're going to do another call on it probably without us on the phone, because if it, then we could build then we could get funding from the CD Foundation to build it out on on their in their environment, in their Google environment. I think they have Jenkins running in a Google environment there, so we could add ourselves up there, and then we need to build out the signups around Ortelius through that. But right now we're hosting it ourselves, and I don't think that the bridge was the only concern that people had, though. So if you go through it, if you you can give us a list of things that we need to take a look at. This would be a good time to do it.
And if something breaks, let's get an issue open, and we can see if that's a common thread that people are tripping over. So even if you run into a problem, the issue's already out there, just go ahead and either update that issue saying you had the same thing, or create another one.
And then has anybody finished a pull request for Hacktoberfest?
Yeah, Sasha has his like 8.
Awesome. He's gonna get a T-shirt.
I got 5. Yeah, I got 5. So
Good. You'll get a T-shirt hopefully.
Or
I'm gonna
plant a tree.
Yeah,
Are
I'll
you gonna plant a tree?
Yeah.
That's
Although
what
I
would
might
do
choose
too.
I might choose a T-shirt since I got socks all the way from the States. So I'll have to.
You got to send us a pic with your socks on.
Yeah, they are. Influx data socks. So cool. Made in the US.
The shipping on those socks cost a lot more than those socks.
Yeah, I didn't pay a thing. Even they used FedEx. It's impressive, man.
That is impressive. You're probably like, whoa, that's new and different.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys,
and just one more question: if anybody needs help on getting those pull requests in, do reach out. I know that some of you are working on some of the stuff, so let's make sure that as many of you can get your 4 pull requests in. And if we need to create more pull requests for Hacktoberfest, just go ahead and create an issue and put Hacktoberfest on it, and then you do the pull request.
Yeah. Mine is still in review though. I think it takes a while.
It's like a 14-day review. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about, but.
Well, they said that they were going to try to do it faster because I know that they said there were so many people participating this year. We're all bored. We're all having fun talking to people virtually. COVID has created an open source community.
Exactly.
All right. Our 36, we're 6 minutes past due. Everybody, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Stay safe. Have fun.
Well, guys.
Okay.
Right. See you guys.
Right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Well, thanks. Okay, bye now.